Hi, it's Gene Tunney here. I hope you're having a great day. It's Saturday, July 4, and I'd like to take the opportunity to speak with you about some of the recent economic data for Australia and for Queensland, particularly the retail trade data which came out yesterday. They were published by the ABS, and they've been greeted very enthusiastically. So there's a lot of excitement about the figures. The Australian is reporting that retail spending has roared back to life as the easing of COVID-19 restrictions returns customers to the nation's cafes, shopping centres and showrooms. So retail spending was up 17% in May after a fall of nearly 18% in April. So let's have a look at the data. There it is. We see that retail turnover is up to $29 billion in May. So it had collapsed to under $25 billion in April. We see that it is actually running above the level that it was at prior to the COVID-19 restrictions coming in. It's not near the figure it was in March when we had all of the panic buying, but it is above where it was prior to that. And I think there are a few reasons for that. The reason given by some of the market economists is that pent-up demand. So what we had was people not spending in April. They were worried about going out, and also there were the restrictions in place, and then they had money that they could then spend in May. Also, I think we're seeing the impact of the JobKeeper and JobSeeker, so the injections of income there, the coronavirus supplement. I think we're seeing that impacting retail trade as well. So let's have a look at the components of it. We see that relative to the same time last year, cafes and restaurants, etc., a slight recovery, but still well down on where they were. Clothing, footwear, etc., that's coming back, so that had a really sharp drop. Department stores, they're running above where they were this time last year. So is food retailing, household goods and other retailing. So online shopping is included in there, if I remember correctly. So I think what we've seen is people have been using this time, so people have more leisure and they're going to be buying goods which are complementary with leisure. And that's why we've seen a big increase in things like, purchases of bikes. People are probably buying tools and gear from Bunnings because, they've got more time if they don't have to go into their workplaces, or if they're not going out to restaurants or to cafes. They've got much more time, and I think that's driving some of the spending we're seeing. I know that a store that I go to occasionally, the Store DJ on the corner of Water Street and Brunswick Street in Fortitude Valley in Brisbane, so just around the corner from me. That store, I think it's been doing record trade. It's very busy on Saturdays. There are always people in there. Any new audio gear they get in, so if they get really high quality microphones in, such as the ones that they use on the Joe Rogan podcast, for example, they will sell out within days. So people are using this time to work on their hobbies, and they're purchasing the goods. So that's been an important part of the growth in some sectors or some parts of retail trade, such as I think household goods. I think that type of spending is affecting that. Okay, let's have a look at what's happened across Australia. What's really fascinating is that Queensland is over 10% above where it was this time last year, so 10.6%. That's compared with 5.6% nationally. So Queensland's performing better than the other states. You can also see this in the retail trade brief from the Queensland Treasury. Let me bring that up so you can see that. If I scroll down there, well, you'll see the figures from, well, Queensland 10.6%, Australia 5.8%. I might have said 5.6% before. So annual change in retail turnover, May 2020, there's Queensland, well above the national average. So Queensland is doing better than the other states. And this is a point that was made by Rachel Hunter, the Under-Treasurer, when she gave her testimony to the inquiry into Queensland Government's response to COVID-19. This is an inquiry I will be appearing at. I'll be appearing at a public hearing of it, well, over Zoom in a week's time, or Monday week. What Rachel Hunter said was that Queensland's actually performed not as badly. I mean, still we've been badly affected, but not as badly as the other states. So let's see if we can look at that a bit more closely. That's a chart showing Queensland's retail turnover has bounced back, and yes, that's illustrating that, what I was saying before, we're doing better than the other states. What we've seen is that Queensland hasn't been as badly affected in terms of hours worked and wages, total wages, as the rest of Australia. And this must have something to do with the industry mix within Queensland. This is something I want to look at a bit more closely, because we know that, well, tourism is important to Queensland, and it's very important in particular regions. I know that there are regions in far north Queensland, such as Cairns and Port Douglas, and they're really struggling because of the loss of that international tourism. But overall, it appears that the composition of our economy has meant that we haven't been as badly affected. We're still, obviously, still badly affected, but just not to the same extent as the rest of Australia. Okay, and that could be because we have mining and we have agriculture and their supply chains, which are providing a bit of a buffer. So I think that's quite interesting, and something I'll try to explore in future videos or in future posts on my blog. One of the other points I wanted to make about Queensland and why our retail numbers might have bounced back or didn't fall as much in the first place as the numbers in the other states. It's possibly because we've always had a disproportionately higher number of people on benefits, on what's now called the job seeker, and the youth allowance, other payment, and people on those benefits are getting that coronavirus supplement. And it's possible that, some people are getting more during this period. They're getting more income than they previously had, including part-time workers who are getting more out of the JobKeeper. And so this is adding to incomes and adding to consumption. So that could be part of it. Okay. Retail has also bounced back in the US, and this is one of the points that President Donald Trump has been boasting about, as well as I think it's 5 million jobs, the 5 million new jobs. So there was a really good jobs report out as well. We also had, these really good retail trade data from the US. So not back to where it was, but still a really strong rebound. So that's exciting. The president, of course, the thing to bear in mind with the US is that the coronavirus appears to be out of control, and we see that they haven't flattened the curve. They're possibly in, it looks like they are in the second wave, or they never really controlled it in the first place. And, it's possible that they might have to enact shutdowns in the future. The recovery that they've been seeing may end up stalling. There are some very concerning figures coming out of the US with coronavirus, and that, of course, could have large adverse economic consequences. Okay, so that's a summary of some of the recent data. And as I mentioned, I want to return to that issue of why Queensland has not performed as badly, although still bad, but just not as badly as the rest of Australia, in a future video or post on my blog, Queensland Economy Watch. So please look out for that. Thanks for joining me. It's been great, and I hope you have a great Saturday. Thanks.